And welcome back to Charting Stack. Today we're exploring the world of digital car experiences, and we're joined with Skylar from Primera, a company that's totally rethinking how people explore, customize, and connect with the vehicles online. You may have seen the basic configurators before, but Primera is taking it way further. Think real-time 3D, augmented reality, no apps, no downloads, just beautiful smooth car visuals that make you want to explore more. Once again, welcome Skylar to the Charting Stack.
Thank you.
We would like to start with just rewinding a bit and how did Primera started and what kind of a gap in the market you noticed in the beginnings.
Yeah, so originally we were more of an agency working on like 3D AR VR type stuff. And at one point we actually landed an industrial manufacturing client. And what we found is that, you know, because they already have the 3D file types, it made the process of creating a very valuable experience for them like that much easier. We could cut out about 80% of the complexity of building a 3D experience because they actually already had the 3D model itself. And with that model, we're able to drive a lot more value, helping them sell their products.
Since we usually talk mobility and cars and everything mobility centered, I'd like to ask, was there a moment where you thought you could venture maybe into car configurators or something like that? Because the market for that is incredible. I mean, just look at the Tesla configurator, like, right? So we've checked out your configurator and what it can do, and that DeLorean demo, and it was amazing. So did you maybe think about venturing into that market?
Yes, we've taken a lot of inspiration, in fact, from Aston Martin's car configurator. And basically, what we're doing is taking that same power and helping distribute that across more OEMs. So, whether it's a big car company or a smaller car company or a startup developing maybe a special vehicle, there are several different areas that can really benefit from using several different types of OEMs that can really benefit from using a configurator.
Yeah, and just backtrack a bit and talk about your brand actually. So when someone hears Trimera for the first time, how would you explain what you do to someone, who's not in the industry, let's say? How
Yeah,
how how to sum it up?
yeah. So basically, what we do is help manufacturers unlock their CAD files for the rest of the company. So most of the time, like CAD files just get locked up in engineering and product, and on like there's a huge air gap to get that over to commercialization. Marketers or sales teams don't have access to those CAD files and need to like constantly go to engineering, which A, it makes it very expensive to get any renderings, and B, engineers are not always the best at creating marketing experiences. And then I guess there's a C in there as well as the amount of compute power it takes to render. And so we offload a lot of those that cost and time off of the engineering team and hand that over to a marketing team so they can be creating really great visual content with it.
I
Yeah,
would just say most of the today's OEMs configurators are a bit clunky. Is it because it's a complex process for them to create them from the get-go?
Yeah, I mean, one big piece is like optimizing CAD models for the internet. Now, with like 5G in particular, it's made it a lot easier to be able to display a lot of like 3D on the internet with like very short loading times, all that. But in the past, one other issue is that especially with a lot of the legacy OEMs, their CAD models are everywhere. Like there's a lot of on-prem data on a maybe if you want to go find the steering wheel for a certain version of car, you have to find where that laptop is, and the engineer might not be working anymore. And so, there's all the metadata essentially is scattered, throughout the company. And so what we've started seeing is a lot of, especially smaller OEMs, have a lot more of their product data intact. So it makes it much easier for them to go from, design to configurator.
so you'd say that's what's broken, maybe bad data mismanagement, let's say.
Yeah, metadata that's needed for engineering is a lot different than the metadata needed on the sales end of everything.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean, I'm just thinking about it, like turning CAD files into something that's visually stunning, looks and sounds really complex. So can you like break it down a bit more? Like, is it really complex?
Sure. So, I mean, the major thing to know is that CAD models are solid based geometries, and which makes them extremely big, like in terms of file size. And what the internet is looking for is what's known as mesh based geometries. So, being able to basically just take the skin of the model, to which you can then apply like a texture, materials, lighting, all that, to make it much smaller of a load to make it available on any device. And then within that as well, you have Android, iOS, like different operating systems that require different parsing of files. For example, Android is for augmented reality is using GLB, whereas iOS is using a file type called USDZ. So, so there is, it's engineers are not always the ones to know how to code this into existence. And so it can take like a wide variety of talent and expertise to go from a CAD file to an internet based configurator.
it was the hardest part of making Trimera work. Like
Sure.
you build something that works without any plugins, without any apps, no crazy loading time. So what's under the hood? How did you make it
Yeah,
happen?
sure. A lot of, optimization. That's a big thing. Depending on what the level of detail it is you're looking for, you have to optimize for that. So if it's the whole car, then maybe it's not going to be all the engine pieces, right? But at the same time, you want to keep all those engine pieces intact so that if somebody were to say click on the hood of the car, it'll open it up and now you'll have the level of detail that you need. That and on the back end, something called load balancing. It's a very technical term in terms of making sure that data is able to get where it needs to go fast.
How does it usually go with the legacy OEMs? Do they have someone in-house who is dealing with the whole process, or they are also hiring someone externally, companies like Primera?
Yeah. So in we do see some in-house, right? Some engineers actually have the talent to like the expertise to be able to render and convert and all that, but most don't. Most engineers are, wanting to design new products or update existing products and make those CAD files better. So on the other side of the fence, you'll have the marketing team that's looking for that visual pleasing, pleasing content. With the bigger OEMs, the legacy car companies, half of the battle is going and finding the right CAD model. And so you need somebody to go out and piece that car together exactly how it's supposed to be.
So now that you mentioned marketing, so what is your, let's say, one-line pitch to an
Yeah,
OEM product manager from a
sure.
from a car company? How would you sell your product to them?
Yeah, so we help them unlock their gold mine of CAD files and make that available for a marketer to create the different types of content they need, whether that's marketing content, sales enablement content, or aftermarket support. So being able to increase engagement online or shorten sales cycles, for instance, or be able to decrease like ticket times or servicing times post purchase. Those are the main different areas that we see are being used with this technology.
I mean, it
Yeah,
sounds really convincing. Sounds like something that all the OEMs need, pretty much.
yeah.
Yes.
Now when we are talking about the business perspective of this all, uh, for a car company, uh, I mean it sounds logical, pretty logical, where the value of a better configurator for them is. But what would you say realistically, based on your experience, the real value of having a better configurator? It doesn't have to be an OEM actually. Would it be more sales, maybe better customer engagement, maybe stronger brand? I mean, it can work in for all those
Yeah.
goals.
Or maybe just explaining a new novel technology you have, like within some charging equipment or batteries, right? Being able to actually use essentially CGI, which is computer generated graphics to be able to really display something that's unique to that product.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen a lot of product configurators since I worked at a few companies who were doing such stuff using the PIMS, dumps, and many other software. So it really does bring it down to a much smaller, simpler level. I mean, I've seen some configurators do some huge houses, huge properties, and where it looks like a visual tour, but it's much more than a visual tour. It's like a, I don't know, it's like a deep dive into a property, deep dive into a product. You know, you can see all the layers, all the small parts, bolts, jolts. So it's pretty all encompassing, and this is why we found Trimera cool. So you've done some cool stuff, and we'd love to talk about the Back to the Future DeLorean demo
We
Sure.
because
have to.
it's what brought
How did
us.
that happen? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, we took a lot of inspiration from what car companies have been able to do. Really, what we're doing is helping unlock that power for other OEMs, right? And the DeLorean, very iconic car, right? That, in what we find is a lot of our customers are, born in the 80s, for example, or know of the DeLorean and Back to the Future being a very popular set. So we just felt like it was a great demo for our market for the most part.
Did you directly contact the people from the production of the film, from the movie? Have you had like the collab with them?
No,
Is there something similar out there? I haven't
well,
seen
so
one
there
detailed like
there's
that.
there's a site called Turbo Squid where you can find a lot of different 3D models, like pretty complete 3D models, and so that's where we found that. And then Back to the Future is actually not really trademarked.
Okay, interesting.
So this Back to the Future demos, so as you say, it sounds more like a fun side project. Like this is just something to show off, you know, to show what you can do. So could stuff like that be how brands connect with fans, or maybe show up some
Yeah,
heritage models? I mean, let's just imagine a Volkswagen Golf MK2, an old one, brand new one from the, let's find
80s.
the 90s, 80s. So is this maybe a way they could connect with some car enthusiasts? Like, I mean, in Croatia especially, we do have a lot of MK2s on our road,
yeah.
MK2s, MK3s, and 4s, and it's pretty iconic. It's legendary. So is this something that could maybe win people back, win their, you know, maybe create some UGC with that, or I don't know.
I would say absolutely. Ultimately, let me kind of bring it back a level. The future of the internet is going 3D, right? We've been in a very 2D internet world for the longest time. And with AI and with AR, VR headsets, XR, spatial computing, whatever you want to call it, the world is becoming more 3D when it comes to the internet. And so it's our customers a lot of times are coming to us because as a brand, they want to stand out, and it's very hard to stand out today. And so as long as they're investing in this 3D future, they're going to stand out for quite a while. It also puts them in a position to better interact with AI and headsets and all these new consumer technologies that are coming out.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that you're going 3D, so this is obviously something that's going to impact the sales process for every company, not just a car company, not just a mobility company. So how would you imagine, since we're talking about this topic, how would the sales process for a car look like in maybe 10 years, 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, depending on like manufacturing or industry 4.0, 5.0, right? Really the metadata being intact all the way to the sales process and into the aftermarket process so that, whether it's a headset, being able to look under the hood and identify what's there and maybe what needs to be fixed, being able to, like we have, explode out a car, click on a part. I mean, think of it like Jarvis from Iron Man,
Yeah.
right? That's how we see the future of the internet and where it's going.
So this could be how people shop in the future. Like, okay, before I go buy this car. Let me just put on my goggles and look at all the tiny parts and maybe examine them, maybe read more about them, how they work, why they work, and so on. So this could be something like, okay, you now have access to all this information, but
Yeah, not I mean
you're
not
gonna.
just pre-purchase, but the companies that are able to, extend that to the post-purchasing process, right? That's basically giving your customers more support if anything does go wrong and helping them quickly diagnose something that's going wrong, help them quickly order the part that they need without like too much of a hassle. So there are a lot of post-purchase ways for companies to stand out as well. In fact, we see a lot of that with in the medical equipment, medical device space, is having those trainings, having those different ways for the doctors to learn and to train technicians on the equipment itself.
Yeah. And I have to again go back to the DeLorean because I'm a huge collector of car models. And now that I think about, imagine having a digital collection of your favorite cars where you can like take them apart and see all the small cars. That would be amazing. So yeah, the industry definitely has a lot of potential and the yeah, it's endless pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just conveys so much more of the product. It helps the product sell itself, right? If somebody can experience in near reality, you could say, it's going to help the product really do a lot of the selling.
So what would you say, for example, now going back to your competitors, I'm guessing there's a lot of them. So is it something that you've noticed they're doing wrong and that Primera is doing better? Or is there someone who's doing exactly the same thing that you guys are doing, but not just on the level that you guys are
Sure.
doing it?
Well, I would say most of our competitors are focused on direct to consumer products. We are more focused on the OEMs and a lot of the times B2B industrial products, the
Hmm.
manufacturers, the ones that have been left out of the internet for the longest time, the legacy businesses. They're actually what we find the most ripe to be able to take advantage of new 3D technologies.
Yeah, something
Also,
CNC machine
Right.
manufacturer, like that would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, or a
That's,
charging stack, right?
yeah,
Like whether it's the battery or the actual
yeah.
equipment itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you could contact maybe, CATL, Chinese one. Those guys are just killing it. I wanted to ask you another thing. So, would you say that every brand needs a high-end 3D configurator, or is this still mostly for premium brands? So, is this something like the service is great, but is this something that mostly premium brands are going for, or is
No,
no, no?
not at all. Whether it's direct to consumer, that's where you see a lot of the shiny stuff, right? But also B2B, like any way that a company can stand out these days from competition and better explain their product, it's going to help them.
Yeah, so this is not locked to only cars and such high complexity products. So you could say any paper cutting machine, any welding machines, and so
Food food
this is a gold
processing
mine.
equipment. Food
Yeah,
processing equipment is a big
yeah,
one.
yeah,
Anything that might be needed in a clean room, like those, yeah.
yeah. So we can say the future is 3D definitely.
Yeah.
And
so talking about a future, what is the future for Primera now? Do you guys have something in plan soon? What is on the
Sure.
timeline? What is on the agenda?
I
Anything
mean,
exciting launching soon?
yeah, right now we're really working on better AI flows to make the process much easier and smoother for our users. Like imagine being able to upload a model and upload an image of the model and have it render and texture on its own. That's one of the tools we're working on, for example. From there, being able to easily tag metadata so that it's easier recognized, so that you can type to create an animation or to create a service demo, like showing how something is done, making those as easily as possible. If we look to the further into the future, when let's say people have their glasses and are able to see what they're doing and be guided through AI like Jarvis, right? A lot of that data we can also use to start training robotics because hand gestures are every piece of equipment is unique, and so being able to track hand gestures is going to be what's needed for an OEM to train a robot on how to service their product.
So this is something that's probably coming out soon, these upgrades, the AI upgrades you're mentioning, but I wanted to ask you about the current process. So let's imagine a brand new small EV company comes through and says, okay, we want to build a 3D product configurator for our new model. How does that work? So what is the step-by-step process? So what do they need? How does it turn out? How long does it take? And
Yeah.
all those.
I mean, the first part of the process, which is getting the step file, converting that to a web-based mesh geometry, basically, and then being able to texture and render that. Depending on the level of detail they're looking, it could take a week. It could take up to a month. That process right there will give them rendered images, photorealistic images or videos, being able to create animations out of that. That's more on the, call it, the marketing and sales end. From there, then we start to like, if it is for marketing and sales, we'll start to plug in CRM systems, or tracking systems to get better data on, like, engagement data. Further out from there, depending on how the complexity of, if you wanted to be able to show somebody how to change out a widget, like in the machine, that, depending on the level of detail there, it can take another like 2 to 3 months to really build out what ends up becoming a 3D parts catalog for them.
So this is all done by you. So the company approaches you, says, okay, we have a project at hand. We need to do this, this, this. And you say, okay, it will take X amount of months to get what you want. And once that time is up, they get a sleek looking 3D product configurator that's, meets all their demands.
Yeah, we do have a self-service back end, but right now, because we are relatively new, we're essentially building alongside of our customers. We're, like I said earlier, like every product, especially in the industrial space, is very unique. And so sometimes maybe we don't have a feature, and so we work with them to figure out what that features that they need is, and how to build it. And so we build it. And so we're treating this as a hand-in-hand service right now, as we build out the full complete platform.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds really exciting, to be
Sounds
honest.
exciting.
Yeah.
So, so let's say speaking of number of years, for example, in 5 years, what does success look like for you, and what's the
Yeah.
biggest challenge in getting there, in your opinion?
Yeah, success for us in 5 years would be, like we're creating a complete product catalog, and all the different tutorials and servicing tutorials that you need, would take a matter of weeks, right? From there, we do expect in at least 5 years that XR, like glasses, all that type of stuff, will be more available, whether it's on the consumer side or on the shop floor. And so really, being able to port all of our experiences into a headset, for example, and having AI trained in there to help somebody, service something faster or diagnose something faster. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting when you're mentioning XR and Vision headsets, because I have a feeling that the latest, I mean, Apple Vision Pro, what happened with that product? I mean, it didn't
It's
live up to
not,
the hype.
it's actually not a failure. A lot of, it's still like in use, but
Okay.
where things have turned in particular, like with Apple Vision Pro, it's pass through, right? So there's cameras and you're not actually seeing through it. That's not OSHA compliant. That's a big thing here in the US, right? And the only OSHA compliant headsets were the HoloLens, the Microsoft HoloLens.
Hmm.
And those actually are getting sunsetted. Everything is really pushing towards, more of a basic everyday like type wear. And we've seen some of those glasses start appearing.
Okay. So this is just me then being really subjective towards the topic. So
I
it
mean,
is being used on
biggest
on a higher scale.
the biggest thing to know is that every XR headset or device, like even your phone, iPhone, tablet, whatever that is, um, like it is like they are basically ready for 3D in a lot of cases, and there's going to be some specific like technical SDKs to get us there. Like one called Slam, which is a function that helps make something look like it's actually in the space, and another called WebXR. These two SDKs or development kits are becoming more popularized because they're going to be added to every single device out there. And so you'll start seeing like some real consistency in 3D no matter what device you're on.
So we can say that your company industry, is generally tied to the XR, AR, VR industry. And I mean, if you look at the statistics, we look at the data, we can see it's growing like 30% plus year over year. It's, I mean, yeah, it's the more this industry succeeds, the more you can succeed, basically. And I see it's kind of tied. It's kind of
Yeah.
tied,
I
connected.
mean, similar to like, let's say blockchain, right? Where there's
Yeah,
a lot of different applications, or AI, which has a lot of different
exactly.
applications.
Yeah, yeah.
XR, AR, VR. I think we're moving personally towards what's known as a digital twin future, right? Where whether it's a product or yourself or your health, or a space, right? Like robots are going to need to navigate the world, right? And digital twins of things, spaces, places. That is going to be how they're navigating the world. But there's of course the human element to it, which is ultimately gonna be able to like get there first, if you will.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, now that we're talking about this and all the digital product experiences, what's one thing that you wish more brands would understand about digital product experiences? Not specifically only car brands, but
Mhm.
brands in general. How it can
Yeah,
contribute to their
I mean,
sales, brand, and
sure. I'll speak to what I know, which is more of the industrial space, right? Like it's a legacy product. You have, younger generations coming to the world expecting like an easy purchasing mechanism, right?
yeah,
They're expecting that you at least have a website, right? And so a lot of B2B industrial companies are starting to move online. In fact, since about 2023, we've seen the interest of going online by these brands like triple in size. In the U.S. alone, the industrial manufacturing space is 2.3 trillion, but last year only 17% of that was transacted online. And customers are gonna walk away if you don't have a cohesive buying journey that they can access anywhere at any time.
yeah, and exactly as you said, many younger generations are just stepping in. I mean, 10 years ago, people who are now 35 or just 25, maybe now, they venture into some new business, into a new industry, and they expect to have something. They have already pretty high standards because, everything today is easy to use. It's simple. It's what's encouraged. So yeah, I get it. I get it actually. If just a follow up here, uh, if you could redesign any, this is probably the most personal one. If there was any brand configurator that you could redesign from scratch, who would you pick and why?
Oh, so we're calling out people now.
Yeah,
We're getting
this.
personal. This is getting personal now.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think that, well, I don't know, maybe I don't
Maybe
want to
a
shoot myself
potential
in the foot.
client, who could hear this and
I
say,
mean, I
guys,
I mean, I think that car companies have done a great job, leading like this technology. Cars are very personal, and people want to see it the way they want to see it. I think that they can also go the next step and really help get that, build that out into the 3D space more. Like with 5G and AI, I think that there's a lot of room for further innovation within the space as well. In particular, we want the John Deeres of the world, right? We
Oh,
want, we want the Vermeers. We want, we see that industrial equipment is also able to do this. I mean, a John Deere is just as complex as a car,
Yeah,
right?
and
Maybe it's not as sexy, but
yeah,
for somebody else, it really is.
I mean, for a million
Yeah.
John Deere, it's probably more complex than a car, to be
Yeah,
honest.
could be, yeah.
Yeah, someone who's paying for it is paying more than for a Lamborghini, and people don't know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't know about it.
Yes, I just wanted to finish things off with an interesting question, a motivational one potentially. So, what advice would you give to someone trying to build a tech product for your space of the industry?
Really just get to know your customers as best you can. Like really listen to them and help them solve problems. That's that's what any business should be doing, is making happy, continuous customers. And if you can do that, then nothing else matters.
Okay, so this one was clear
Smart
statement.
research above all.
Clear statement. Do not do work, just solve problems.
Yes, solve
Yes.
problems. There you go.
Okay,
Awesome.
we have some
Awesome.
one of lightning round questions. So these are quick ones. Uh, since again it's a mobility interview we usually do. First question would be, what do you think is the most underrated car brand when it comes to digital product experience?
I mean, we always have taken a lot of inspiration from Aston Martin. If you go look at their product configurator, it is really nice. Yeah, that's where we've taken a lot of it. Of
Okay,
course,
so
there's Tesla as well, and all the others as well, but Aston Martin is one that really stood out to us.
We have to check the Aston Martin now. Maybe we can cover
yeah,
it, Philip, in one of our editions.
Yeah.
Sounds promising. I wanted to ask you, what is the one, again, automotive trend that's totally overhyped in your opinion? Maybe something more related to how they're presenting, how they're creating their models, how they're creating their configurators. Maybe something that's being used in a wrong way, or something that's being used that shouldn't be really used.
I mean, autonomous driving is definitely a thing out here. I don't know if it's overhyped or not. I see a lot of what BYD is doing, and a lot of, being able to park sideways. I just hope it's all true, right? I
Hmm.
haven't seen that on the road yet, so you kind of got to kick the tires sometimes.
Yeah, we've been covering a lot of it, and it's really, I mean, yeah, I mean, Waymo is the one brand that's doing it most for right now, but there's a lot of players that are not being talked about, again, from China and India, but it's still being mostly operated in, I mean, Waymo still, they're declaring that they are covering the whole San Francisco area, but they're, I mean, again, then when they're driving, they're avoiding some of the streets. They have their routes, they're following, if the construction work happens, they can get a bit lost. So it is a bit, iffy. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is definitely a future. And then again, the last question again related to automotive space is your a personal one. Um, is there a dream car you'd love to turn into a three-mirror demo?
I think we did that with the DeLorean, but I think it'd be amazing to be able to like work with Tesla on doing these. Whether it's, yeah, just, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean maybe with the robotaxi. Who knows if that thing ever comes out? They're saying June this year, but yeah, we'll see.
we'll see. It's very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this was all from us. Thank you so much, Skylar. We had a blast talking to you. And this
So,
is, I mean, everything from us from this episode. I mean, stay tuned for more from Charging Stack. And yeah, thank you so much, Skylar.